kind of introduce your film to the audience here, and what's it about?
The film's called Hunter x Hunter. It is a thriller horror. It's about a family of fur trappers who are living out in the remote wilderness, far from any kind of civilization, who make their living trapping. And a wolf has been harassing them and stealing from their traps. So the husband goes out trying to hunt the wolf, and he finds more than he bargained for. And hilarity ensues.
And kind of how did, since you also wrote it, how did you come up with the idea for the film?
There's been it's a bunch of elements that were inspirations to it. The script is 13 years old, so it's undergone a bunch of revisions and different kind of influences have colored its rewrites and things like that. But the heart of it still remains. One of the big inspirations that I wanted to think about was the utility of tradition. How traditions are passed down from one generation to the next, and what happens when those traditions become obsolete and are made to die out. And that's kind of what the whole movie is about.
Interesting. I'm gonna, I guess, since you said it, the script went over many times, I'm gonna kind of skip to the ending here. And no spoilers, I'm not going to give it away. And I don't want you to give it away.
Spoilers.
Yeah, no. But I'm interested to know, at what point did you know that was going to be the end of the film? And obviously you know what I'm talking about, the big thing that happens at the end. Did you know early on, since you said you wrote the script many times over, kind of where along the lines did you end up there?
It couldn't have ended in any other kind of way as far as I was concerned. It was around... at the very beginning, whether or not it was the reason for the film, I can't really remember it anymore, but it has been early enough that the first draft of the script had the ending. It's just something like, the 7 head in the box where you couldn't, once you see it, you can't really picture it ending in any other fashion. So there was a sense of finding that ending and then making sure that the ending is justified throughout the lead up in the story. And so that's how the ending dictated how the story went, is that I didn't want the ending to be gratuitous in any way, but I wanted the horrific nature of the situation to make a horrific response very natural.
Well, I thought you did an excellent job of leading up to it, because as soon as that happened, then I instantly thought, of the events that happened prior. I'm like, okay, now I can see how this all came to be.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hopefully if I'm doing my job right, you're not too sure how you feel about the ending. Like, there's a satisfying aspect to it, I believe. But also a horrific one.
Yeah, as a horror fan first, I always enjoy that first, and then you kind of take back, and then you take a step back and you kind of see, like I said, how you got there and how it involved with the story, and the reason why everything happened the way it did.
Yeah, in retrospect, it should seem like that it's all kind of, once you've seen it all, it's all kind of led to that moment.
And that's another thing that I really liked about the film, is that it kind of, you did a good job with the pacing of it. It you kind of think, okay, this is going to be a survivalist story, and then you kind of get in with the family there, and then you introduce a little bit of horror, and then a little bit more, and then you have that great ending there.
Yeah, the intention was to make a very deliberate pace, not necessarily breakneck speed, but never taking a step back in terms of momentum. And then the twists start coming, and it becomes kind of, it
I thought it did. I really enjoyed. That's one of the reasons why I really enjoyed the film.
Right.
Your cast did an excellent job. Can you talk about how you got them all on board and what it was like working with them?
They were absolutely brilliant. Camille came on first and throughout the course had saved the production in more ways that I could explain in 15 minutes. But she was an absolute powerhouse, and she carries the film magnificently. She, like the other three main characters, they all jumped into it with a lot of dedication and a lot of gusto. They could have gone completely the other way because we were off in a really far-flung place that was as treacherous as it looked on film. And, you know, there was very few amenities that are normally in film productions, and they just jumped right into it, taking it as an experience that'll be fun, and I think you can kind of see that in the family cohesion. Devon and Nick were both absolute pros, so, you know, it was really easy talking to them, and you can actually see your directions and the choices that you had made before you started rolling. You could really see it in their changes. So it was really a joy working with them. And Summer, you know, Summer was fantastic, and I'm so fortunate to have found an actor who was young who could carry that stuff. Because I've said this a bunch before this week, but Summer's character was an 8-year-old boy before I'd seen her audition. So she was that good that I had to change the character from a very young boy to a slightly older girl.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, she did an excellent job, and when I was kind of preparing for this, I was looking at her information, and I saw that she was in some other things, and I'm like, oh, okay, that explains why she did.
Yeah, she was in Chucky. She had to be a real princess of horror.
Exactly. So I'm like, because I you know, it was hard to tell there in the movie because, you know, she's usually covered up and got a thing on her head. But I thought there was something familiar about her, and then I realized, and then when I was looking at it, I'm like, oh, okay, she was in Chucky, okay.
Yeah, she was, and she's no stranger to gore. Although I was questioning whether or not she'd be willing to watch the ending when the movie came out, but she loved it. She really, she was a fan. She watched it with her mother.
Wow.
Yeah.
You mentioned a little bit about the location there. So, where did you shoot in, and was it a larger area, or sometimes when people do things in the forest like that, they narrow it down, or did you cover a lot of ground, or?
We covered a ton of ground. It was all shot in the province of Manitoba. For the really far-flung stuff, we had to go to the border of Manitoba and Ontario for the getting into the Canadian Shield, where there's a lot of ridges and you know, waterfalls and things like that. We needed that kind of picturesque location for it, and to do that, we had to go really far out to the middle of nowhere, carrying a camera through a kilometer of woods and things like that. But another one was shot in the middle of nowhere. Some of the forest stuff that was shot in a place that we found just out of luck as we were driving back from a location scout, and found that this area was absolutely perfect and creepy for what we were looking to do. And the third little bit was the cabin stuff. The cabin was a heritage building, which means it was more than 100 years old and had a little plaque in front of it and things like that. That we were extremely fortunate enough to be able to film before it was vandalized and destroyed. And that was in a provincial park. So it was those three places that we needed to go and get specific looks, and it made the shoots a lot more complicated, but we succeeded at it, and the payoff was really good.
And then the cabin that the family lived in, that was something you made for set, or something you found along in the location?
No, like I said, it's over 100 years old. It's a heritage building in a provincial park. So it was built at around the time when nobody lived in it. Like, it existed in the middle of the woods at one point in time, far away from civilization. So it kind of had the vibe going for it before we got there.
Oh, okay. And would you say that the location and doing the shoot out there in the woods was the hardest challenge, or was there something else that was a bigger challenge for you on the shoot?
It's hard to single out one challenge because they were daily, massive, potentially outcome deciding problems that were posed. Things like logistic problems, of course, of having a supply line stretched so thin while you're pumping up a ridge with a bunch of camera gear. So all of that kind of stuff was difficult, the logistics, but also money is always a huge challenge. And if you're making an ambitious picture that's kind of punching above its weight, then you're not really afforded a lot of room for surprises or for errors when you're shooting, because all of that money is already allocated to something. So we were fortunate enough, and I was fortunate enough to have a crew who was just ready and willing to react to any kind of hardships. And there were tons of hardships. There was, a week in the middle of shooting that we had suddenly lost access to our dolly, which we couldn't bring with us. And this was an emergency that had popped up in a film where we never stopped moving, like the camera never stops moving in the movie unless there's a specific reason for that immobility. And so without the dolly, we had to suddenly scramble on the day to find devices that would still allow us to move so that all of our stuff would be matching the rest of the film that week. And we were able to preserve that part of the vision. So it was all I was going to say it's a bunch of little problems, but they were all massive problems that we had to deal with every day. I couldn't be more thankful for the crew who had managed to slog through it with me every day.
Wow. And with those challenges, were you able to basically shoot everything that you wanted to? And like you said, you went over the script many times. So did you fit most of the movie that you wanted to, or did you end up having to take maybe a little bit out for A, B, or C reason?
Yeah, most of it we were able to achieve, but for sure there was some, as a director, there's always stuff that, unless you're dealing with unlimited resources, there's something, if you're that close to the movie, there's always stuff that you think that you left on the table that you could have done better, that you could have improved on. That, like, I've seen the movie 1,000 times. I used to watch it 3 times a day during the editing process. And so, I don't really have any frame of reference on how that stuff is landing. So, it's also good to get people's opinion of it.
And speaking of people's opinion, the movie isn't really out yet, but the entire cast and crew has seen this movie. I mean, have you guys seen it all together or maybe separately?
We weren't able to see it all together. The producer and my producing partner and my DOP, we were able to watch it on a big screen, socially distanced in a warehouse, just to see how things looked. But the cast got to see a screener, and they watched them all by themselves. So, yeah.
Yeah, part of, I guess, the COVID world we're living in now.
That's it.
Are you? I know the movie is going to be in theaters, but I guess the theater experience isn't the same right now. Are you a little disappointed that maybe not everybody's going to get to see this on the big screen, or not to any of your fault, but just because of the world we're in?
Well, I'm not too sure. That's what makes life really interesting right now, is that we're going through uncharted territory and dealing with things that are unprecedented. So I'm not really sure how that change is going to affect the outcome. Is it, on the flip side, it could, because people are stuck at home, it could help VOD sales quite a bit if something's that easy to access. And view of it that's, it could be good, it could be bad. In any case, it is what it is, and I'm ready to embrace however that unfurls.
I've found it, an interesting question to ask some filmmakers. Everybody has a different opinion of it, and for us fans, it's a little disappointing, especially those that like to go to the theaters. But it is it is what it is.
Yeah, me too. It's a shame that we're trying to get in. I think we're still in theaters, in select theaters around the States. But yeah, I'm not sure how well that's going to work here, and it would make perfect sense if the theater side of things doesn't fly.
It is, yeah, and but it is good to that we still at least have the option to watch at home, and I've watched tons of horror at home over the last several months.
Yeah, me too. That's what I was saying. Like, especially with the amount of consumption that viewers are doing right now, or people have probably exhausted all of the decent horror movies that are out on any kind of streaming service. So there may be some kind of not only a demand, but like a thirst for those kinds of films, which I hope mine is a part of.
Well, I talking with a lot of horror fans and so forth, it's not such a bad thing, because I know there's a big group that doesn't go to the theaters anyway, regardless. It's very hard to get them to go to the theaters and so forth. They usually wait for video on demand or DVD or so forth. So, myself, I like the theater, but, I guess it's just a matter of preference there.
Yeah, I do too. The experience is a completely different thing, especially for horror with horror fans. It's like you can feel everybody else's energy in the theater. It's why I really loved the genre film festivals. We didn't go into any film festivals this year because of the COVID nightmare, but in my other previous movies, I've always loved those genre festivals because it's people who are straight up genre fans, and to be in the same room with all of them is, there's an excitement that's palpable.
Yes, and the way your film ends, I would love to be in a festival and just enjoy that final moment there, and with others around me, and see everybody's different reaction to what just happened.
Me too. I'm wondering if anybody's going to cheer. there is kind of a cathartic element to it, and I don't want to give away the movie, so I'm just telling you. But if somebody gets their just desserts in space, but I'm not sure. I'd love to see that in a room full of people as well, just to see their reactions to it.
There's always that one person that wants to cheer, whether they cheer or not. You never know, but.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's the ones who cheer have to reflect afterwards and think of what exactly they were just cheering for, and what that makes them as moral creatures.
Sometimes you can't contain the horror fan in you.
That's it. That's what catharsis is. It's the release of something that you can't hold back.
There's other things I would like to ask, but I don't want to spoil it, and I don't want to spoil our fans. So I guess I'll give you one last question here, and kind of a chance to let you promote your film and just tell fans why they should watch it, what they should expect from the film.
Well, this is kind of an old school horror that takes itself deadly serious. It has a very deliberate pace that might start a little slowly, but it never once through the course of the film takes a step back. So things start pretty grim and they get progressively grimmer. And everything, the entire movie is a build-up to a very shocking ending that will hopefully have people, like we were just discussing, really thinking about their reactions to that event. movies that genuinely scare me or disturb me, and so that was the intention behind making this film.
Awesome. And I think you said it well earlier on when you kind of related it to the moment in Seven, and I can definitely see that that connection.
And movies like the Dutch version of The Vanishing was a huge inspiration for the movies. As I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it's essentially a bloodless movie that leads up to the last 5 minutes, which will have you standing up with your hands to the side of your head going, what the hell's going on here? Everything builds up to the end, or Takeshi Miike's audition, things like that are kind of creepy throughout the movie and then just drop off a cliff in the last 5 minutes.
Nothing wrong with that kind of movie. Nothing at all.
No, not for me there.
No, with that, I thank you for your time, and like I said, I really enjoyed the movie and how it all came together there, and I appreciate the chance to watch it.
Yeah, thanks very much for having a look. I really appreciate outside opinions right now. It's hard to gauge whether or not anything's effective in the movie after you've seen it 1,000 times.
Awesome. Well, I thank you for your time, and I guess hopefully COVID ends soon, and have a good rest of the day and year, and happy holidays.
Fingers crossed, man. All the same to you.